Hey guys, Max here, and over the last few days or the last week even, there have been a bunch of updates regarding the Twitter deal between Elon Musk and the current shareholders of the company. Most recently, we've seen that Jack Dorsey seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth, at least when it comes to Twitter. He's left the board of the company, more on that in a moment. We've also seen that Elon is now being sued by certain shareholders of Twitter in a class action lawsuit. And then finally, Elon has actually changed the fundamentals of the deal. So we're going to cover all of this today, explain exactly what's going on. So let's just get right into it. So we're starting off, of course, with the fact that Jack Dorsey is leaving the board. Now, this is actually a very big deal. He was the founder of Twitter. He was the CEO of Twitter for about a decade. And throughout that entire time and the couple of years after he left as CEO, he's also been a board member too. So he's always been involved in the decision-making processes. Even as of right now, he's still a 2.4% shareholder in the company because as of yet, no shares have exchanged hands regarding this Elon deal. And so it seems, at least from my point of view, that this departure from the company has come sort of out of nowhere. Now, not everyone agrees. Plenty of pundits all over Bloomberg and CNBC will be telling you the opposite, that they saw this miles ahead. But in reality, no one really did, and this is why. Dorsey was seemingly ousted from his role as CEO of the company against his will. It didn't seem like he wanted to step down, but the board wasn't really happy with his performance as CEO, so it seemed that there was some kind of hostile behind-the-scenes nature, and things went awry, and he lost his job. Now, despite this, he stayed on the board itself because he was a major shareholder and still very influential in the company, and he's always been a strong advocate for the ideas of free speech and a proponent of the idea that Twitter should actually push for free speech and should try to censor as little as possible. He is also a close personal friend of Elon Musk's, and he's been so for decades now. They've spoken a lot about this Twitter deal. He's come out in vocal support of this Twitter deal, saying that ideally, no one would own Twitter, but if someone has to own it, he'd rather it's Elon than a publicly traded company where there are millions of individual shareholders. It also seemed that he didn't want to sell his shares to Elon. He planned on rolling his portion of the ownership over into this new private company with Elon, so he would remain a 2.5% stakeholder in the company, while Elon would own probably something in the region of 80%. Now, there were even rumors that actually Jack Dorsey would be reinstated as CEO of Twitter, either as an intermediary thing until a full-time CEO was found to replace Parag, because let's be honest, he's going, or actually as a full-time thing itself, just put Jack Dorsey back in power and let him do his thing. Now, I don't know about you, but what I just said there doesn't scream someone who wants to leave Twitter and just abandon his seat at the board and never have anything to do with the running of the company again. In my opinion, it says the total complete opposite, that actually he's very interested in having his say heard. Now, that's why I actually think it's a little bit weird that he left his board seat seemingly unannounced. It was all done very quickly, and I'm not exactly sure what went on, but this is probably something to do with Elon's Twitter deal. He's probably lost some goodwill with the other members of the board and the current shareholders, and that's probably what's going on there. Now, whatever is going on behind the scenes in the boardrooms and in the C-suites and things like that, the markets didn't really seem to care. The share price of the company didn't react to this news. Of course, if they thought it would affect the likelihood of this news, of this deal passing, then it would react, but clearly they didn't. Now, the next thing to talk about, though, actually does relate directly to whether or not people think this deal is going to go through. And this is the fact that Elon is being sued by a number of his shareholders in Twitter in a class action lawsuit. And they're alleging that basically he's been toying with the company's share price, tweeting things purposely, knowing that it will affect the share price, and that amounts to market manipulation. Now, obviously, since Elon has had an interest in owning Twitter, its share price has moved loads. At first, it went up 50% on the idea that he was going to buy it at $54 a share because it was trading at a huge discount to that level. And then it fell by about 30% as Elon raised concerns about the number of fake users on Twitter and said that as of now, the deal is on hold. Now, it is absolutely categorically true that his actions and his words have been affecting the stock price, but what the class action lawsuit is alleging is that his intentions were to influence the stock price. He wasn't intending to actually renegotiate the terms of the deal. He was just trying to drop the share price, supposedly to hurt investors. Now, in this lawsuit, it actually specifically mentions the way that he's spoken about bots on Twitter and how they think that this is a scheme to try and get a discount. Elon has spoken about bots on Twitter an awful lot, especially recently, but in my opinion, this is very well warranted. About a month ago, it came out that Twitter had been lying to their investors for a minimum of 2 years about the number of daily active users. And for a social media company, which monetizes based on its daily active users, well, lying about that figure should be fraudulent, in my opinion. It's absolutely shady stuff. It shouldn't go unnoticed or unchecked, but investors are choosing to sort of ignore that and instead to focus on Elon's actions instead. Now, to be clear, it is very feasible that Elon has been specifically tweeting about this just to play with the share price. I don't know what goes inside his head. I'm not exactly sure how this process is going to play out in court. I'm not a lawyer, and even if I was, I'm a British person, so I wouldn't even be an American lawyer, and I wouldn't specialize in, SEC type stuff. So I really have no idea what's going on here. But from reading other people with actual legal minds and with expertise in this field, from reading their opinions, it seems like this is a little bit unlikely to go anywhere concrete. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. The first is that if this deal actually goes through, Elon will be buying these shares off for that original price of $54.20 anyway. So there would really be no reason for this class action lawsuit to continue. People would have got their money and nothing would have changed. The floating share price wouldn't have made any impact on them at all. It also seems like this lawsuit needs to prove that Elon's intentions were not to, shed light on the fraudulent practices of Twitter regarding these bots, but to affect the share price and nothing else. So that's going to be a little bit difficult to get through a court as well, by all accounts. Whichever way it ends up going, as of right now, Elon really doesn't seem too bothered. I am still of the opinion that he does actually want to buy Twitter and he does intend to go through with this. It's a little bit of a tough time to be making such a expensive purchase at this time. The monetary environment is pretty poor. We've all seen that stocks are falling, especially high growth tech stocks like Tesla. I think Elon has seen over $100 billion of his net worth wiped out over the last couple of months. And so there are a few problems with raising capital, but that's where this next story comes into play. So as you can see here, Elon Musk is changing the financing of the deal. Now, he's not changing the deal itself. He's still offering the same $44 billion for the outstanding shares of Twitter, which comes out to $54.20 a share. What he is changing is how he's going to pay for that price. He's now planning to put in, as you can see, $33.5 billion of the $44 billion required, with about $12.5 billion of loans planned. And that is a significant departure from what he was planning in the past, where he was going to have much more debt and much less equity. Now, there are also going to be some private investors still. I believe the Saudi Arabian investment fund plans to roll over their shares into this new company. Jack Dorsey, as of a couple of weeks ago, before we got this news of him leaving the board, he was planning on rolling over his shares. And then there were a bunch of other high-profile investors intended to do the same thing too. So what this really does is it just increases the likelihood that Elon can actually afford this, even with the markets dropping. Prior to this, he was planning on getting out loans based on his Tesla stock and using that to pay for this purchase, but that commitment is being reduced. And so the fear of a margin call, the fear of Tesla stocks dropping, and then Elon being forced to pay back a debt that may be in the tens of billions, those are reduced. And so it's just a little bit of added confidence for investors that actually this deal is likely to go through. If it wasn't likely to go through, if Elon wasn't serious, would he have bothered changing around the financing? Would he have bothered going this far in the first place? Personally, I don't think so, but that's still yet to be seen. Now, as this does directly influence the likelihood of this deal going through, and as Twitter is currently trading at a discount to that supposed offer of $54 a share, the share price of Twitter jumped pretty much immediately on this news. It rose by 13%, showing that actually the markets agree with me that this is an indication that yes, Twitter is probably going to be bought out by Elon, or at least this change in his financing is a step in that direction. Of course, we've spoken a lot about this Elon and Twitter deal a lot recently. It's a very big deal. It's one of the largest acquisitions around right now. It is the largest one by an individual and not another company. So that's a very interesting thing too. And then it's Twitter, which has an absolutely monumental impact on our way of life, on democracy, on freedom of speech and things like that. So it really is worth talking about. Unfortunately, for those who are a bit tired of this, it's probably going to take more twists and turns into the future. Multi-billion-dollar companies like this are never simple. There are always hiccups and speed bumps along the way. And so I am going to keep keeping you all updated on this, making sure you know what's up with these periodic videos every couple of weeks. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to bless the YouTube algorithm. It really does help. If you want to join our exclusive community, then check out our Patreon. You get access to our Discord server and extra content like access to my portfolio and buy and sell alerts for all my own investments. Also, make sure to check out the link in the description to Masterworks. They can help you protect your portfolio against market turmoil through fractional shares of art from world famous artists. Art has historically proven to be uncorrelated to the markets, so it's a really valuable resource with the markets falling every week. There's also a link in the description to I Trust Capital, a site that allows you to invest in crypto through your tax-advantaged IRA, which could literally save you thousands. If you think that crypto going down is a buy-in opportunity, then now is the perfect time to join I Trust Capital. Thank you all for watching. Stay stoic. Until next time.